If you ask an AI video generator for a simple 90s romance, you don't get a masterpiece. You get a chaotic, morphing fever dream. The algorithm doesn't actually understand what a narrative arc is. It doesn't know what human emotion looks like in sequence. It only knows how to predict the next cluster of pixels based on the text you typed. To force these tools to produce actual cinematic art, creators have to invent an entirely different language. They have to engineer the script. Achieving genuine emotion on screen means throwing out traditional flowing prose. You have to replace it with a rigid, mechanical set of instructions. Take a look at a script designed specifically for AI called The Monsoon Paper Boat. It opens with a nostalgic scene: two kids making paper boats in a traditional village courtyard, bathed in golden hour sunlight. To get the AI to render this warmth, the writer applies the first foundational rule. They split the scene into strictly isolated instruction categories. Watch a standard screenplay description break apart. The visual prompt abandons emotional descriptions for strict aesthetic tokens, feeding the machine specific data points like 4K and terracotta. Meanwhile, the isolated audio layer becomes a separate instruction set for entirely different AI audio tools. By compartmentalizing sight and sound into separate columns, the creator lays down a reliable mathematical baseline. The AI now has a strict blueprint to follow. In the second act of our story, the seasons change. The children grow up and drift apart, trading the rainy village for a sprawling modern metropolis. Here we hit the hardest hurdle in AI video generation: keeping your characters looking like the same people as they age, change clothes, and move to completely different environments. This flowchart illustrates the solution. Creators use seed images to lock down facial landmarks and transfer them across the timeline. You pair that reference image with highly specific text descriptors like South Indian descent, expressive dark eyes, feeding the machine those exact physical constraints. The payoff is a recognizable rendering of our protagonist, Ram, now an adult looking wearily out of a high-rise window at the neon city below. Character continuity doesn't happen by accident. It is a meticulously engineered anchor that forces a forgetful machine to remember exactly who the story is about. This act also requires a massive visual shift, moving from the static warmth of the village to the fast-paced, cool-toned blur of modern city nights. Left to its own devices, AI defaults to generating static, lifeless imagery. You have to explicitly instruct it using motion mechanics, commands borrowed directly from traditional cinematography. By typing commands like rack focus or fast-paced time-lapse, you bypass the algorithm's stationary habits and force the camera to move dynamically. These are cold, clinical instructions, yet when executed correctly, they create an immediate sense of isolation and weariness for the character staring out the window. The feeling of cinematic pacing comes entirely from the writer's ability to simulate heavy, physical camera rigs using nothing but text prompts. The story reaches its climax when a sudden monsoon downpour forces our two adult characters to take shelter in the same quaint vintage bookstore. This serendipitous reunion introduces the final technical hurdle: audio-visual sync. The independent sound design and the visual renderings have to align perfectly to sell the emotion. Look at this dual timeline. The script dictates the moment the bookstore lighting shifts golden, timing it perfectly with an orchestral swell. But dialogue, thunder, rain, and music must be managed as separate variables. The video generator cannot mix them. The deep emotional impact of this reunion only lands because the creator steps in as a precision editor, manually stitching these isolated, machine-generated layers together. The script closes on a final frame, their hands resting on a table beside a folded paper boat, bathed in that familiar, nostalgic courtyard light. The warmth of that final image stands in stark contrast to the rigid, highly technical inputs required to pull it out of the latent space. This evolution suggests that traditional storytelling and directorial vision are simply finding a new expression through the prompt itself. Writers are adopting a new toolkit, using technical cinematographic terms as the parameters to focus the AI's perspective. The magic of AI cinema rests on the creator's ability to engineer specific human intent into a machine's code.